Colin Cowherd. Oh, what an interesting media personality to talk about. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about ESPN begging Colin Cowherd to return to their network in order to save ESPN Radio. With ESPN Radio in massive decline, they are in desperate need to boost up their ratings as that will help out their revenue situation. ESPN is reportedly offering Colin Cowherd record-breaking money as they are trying to do anything and everything they can to get him back to the network. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. Should Colin Cowherd come back to ESPN? And if you guys have already watched my previous videos pertaining to ESPN, you guys already know the correct answer to this. No! Colin Cowherd should not come back to ESPN. Nobody should ever work for ESPN, especially if you are already a media star that is not dependent on ESPN to make you into a star. Why do I feel so passionate about this situation? Because of the fact that Colin Cowherd knows that ESPN doesn't grant freedoms to say whatever you want. Whenever you work for ESPN, ESPN wants you to promote a certain agenda, which is basically to serve as the woke spokesperson for the network, because ESPN is like the sports version of CNN. At ESPN, you don't have freedoms to say whatever you want to say. When you're at ESPN, you have to follow what the producers are saying, and the producers want to be very left-leaning, and Colin Cowherd knows that he can't afford to go back to working like that, because Colin Cowherd has worked at ESPN in the past, and he knows that ESPN is very left-leaning, and he knows that he is not fit for that. Colin Cowherd is the kind of guy that cares more about freedom more so than money. There are some people out there that care about money and they let money define their choices in life, but Colin Cowherd is not one of those people. Now, you could attract somebody like Shannon Sharp with a bunch of money and say, okay, Shannon, go ahead and go over here and repeat whatever I tell you to say, and Shannon Sharp would be like, all right, because secretly he's a yes man. I know that on Twitter he tries to act like he's this big, bad, tough guy, but in actuality, he's a soft guy. You know who's a tough guy? Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd stands up against the woke. Look, am I saying that Colin Cowherd is perfect? No, he's not. Heck, most of the time, Colin Cowherd's takes are horrible and he's wrong most of the time. But that's not why I'm here to talk about Colin Cowherd. I'm here to talk about Colin Cowherd because of the impact that he has had on the network. Colin Cowherd is a media star. He has proven it over a number of years. When Colin Cowherd was at ESPN Radio, people tuned in to watch. People used to watch ESPN like it was the main thing to watch for sports content. Nowadays, when you think about ESPN Radio, you think of it as a joke. You think of it as a place where failures of people go ahead and meet up with each other and try to mingle with one another in order to make the network survive in that department. Guys like Max Kellerman, guys like Keyshawn Johnson, guys like Jay Williams, that's where they go ahead and meet up. And that's been the problem with ESPN Radio. Ever since Mike and Mike got canceled, they have been going in a downward spiral in terms of their ratings and interest, and a lot of people just don't care for ESPN Radio anymore. For years, ESPN has treated ESPN Radio like a mistress instead of the wife. They have not done a good job taking care of them whatsoever. They haven't solved the issue in years. They keep trying to put band-aids to solutions. They think, okay, Max Kellerman was a failure. Let's just go ahead and just shove him on ESPN Radio. Let's see if he can make anything out of that. Of course, Max Kellerman was not going to do anything out of that. That was an impossible situation for Max Kellerman to succeed in because of the fact that Max Kellerman is not a media star. I don't watch sports to listen to Max Kellerman talk. I come in to watch sports so I can be entertained and also so I can learn a little bit about the game. That's kind of like Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd does a great job getting people interested about the sport while making sure that you learn a little bit about the game. Now, do I think Colin Cowherd is wrong a lot? Definitely. That's not even a question mark. Sometimes I think Colin Cowherd's takes are just flat out stupid and uninformed, but at least Colin Cowherd knows what he's doing. At least Colin Cowherd knows what is going on with his audience. He can read the audience room very well, and that's a skill that a lot of people, when they talk about sports, have to learn, myself included. I have to understand what does the audience want to hear and how do we appeal to that audience, and Colin Cowherd is the master of that. And also, if you're Colin Cowherd, why would you go to ESPN where you would be a smaller fish in a bigger pond? Because Colin Cowherd at Fox Sports right now is the big fish in a small pond. And speaking of small ponds, Fox Sports is no longer the small pond, the ESPN's big lake, because of the fact that FS1 is actually generating more ratings than ESPN is. When you talk about what what people use to watch sports, FS1 is the main thing to go to now, not ESPN. According to Nielsen, that's basically a rating site, it's talking about how FS1 is in more homes than ESPN, and that hasn't happened ever. That happened this past year. FS1 is reaching more than 71 million homes, which is something that ESPN is failing to do right now. If I told you guys 10 years ago when Fox Sports started up that this would happen, a lot of people would probably look at me and think, you're crazy. That would never happen. But that's exactly what has happened. And Colin Cowherd is a big reason why Fox Sports has become so popular to rely on for sports fans to go ahead and listen to. You can talk about all those shows on FS1. You can talk about First Things First. You can talk about Undisputed. You can talk about Speak for Yourself. You can talk about Speak. You can talk about Fair Game with Christine Leahy. Even I remember that even aired for a couple of years. But the Herd has always been here all those years, and the Herd is the reason why a lot of people go ahead and watch FS1. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm the biggest fan of the Herd, but sometimes I find their segments entertaining, particularly when they do something funny with their topics and when they say Baker or this guy. And what I'm referencing with the Baker or this guy is when Colin Cowherd is talking about comparisons between the other quarterbacks versus Baker Mayfield. Because if you guys didn't know, Colin Cowherd is a big hater of Baker Mayfield, which honestly, I can't even blame Colin Cowherd for myself, because I feel the same way with Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield is trash. Colin Cowherd knows he's trash, and he wants to make sure that everybody knows that Baker Mayfield is not that guy and that he is clearly a bust for a #1 overall pick. Point of the story is Colin Cowherd is a big fish in a small pond. He's the face of Fox Sports. Money doesn't necessarily buy happiness. Colin Cowherd has said this several times. He says that he has had the freedom to do whatever he wants more often at Fox Sports, and with that freedom, you can do whatever you need to do. And Colin Cowherd knows that, hey, if I stay at Fox Sports, I'm going to be looked at as the face of that channel, and I can do whatever I want. If I go to ESPN Radio, I'm going to basically disappear into the abyss. I'm just going to become just another guy, and nobody's going to care about me. Who cares if I make an extra 7, 8, 9, 10 million a year if nobody knows my name? Colin Cowherd recognizes that the most important thing in sports media is to make sure that you can garner in ratings, because if you can't garner ratings, then nobody's going to care about you no matter how much you make. A media member could make $40 million a year, but if he's not even garnering good ratings whatsoever, nobody is going to go ahead and care about that guy. And then guess what? ESPN or whatever network is going to have to terminate that contract with that guy. Look at Shannon Sharpe for an example. Shannon Sharpe had a big contract at Fox Sports. It didn't matter to the people in the Fox Sports executive department, because you know why? Because they laid off Shannon Sharpe and they basically told him to get out of here with multiple years left on his deal. So at the end of the day, it's a production business, and Colin Cowherd has to understand that. And with that being said, that means that Colin Cowherd should not join ESPN for whatever reason. I don't care if ESPN is offering him $25 million a year. They're not going to go ahead and do that. But if they did, I would not take that deal if I was Colin Cowherd. That would not be smart business on his part. Colin Cowherd should stay right where he is at FS1. And also, he has his own podcast as well. It's called The Volume, where he can be more authentic to his viewership. If he was at ESPN, he would not be able to launch that podcast called The Volume, because ESPN hates authenticity. Colin Cowherd loves authenticity, which means that Colin Cowherd is not going to be a good fit at ESPN. So to me, if I'm Colin Cowherd, I'm saying to ESPN, let your radio ratings die and make sure that place ends up becoming extinct, just like how ESPN is going to be defunct by 2030. It's really that simple. Colin Cowherd, you need to make sure that you stay at FS1 for the foreseeable future, or otherwise go independent. Whatever you do, do not team up with ESPN. I don't care how much money they're offering you a year. Do not do a Colin Cowherd. If you follow what I say, you're going to make the best decision of your life. So that is why Colin Cowherd should definitely not come back to ESPN, as that would ruin the freedom that Colin Cowherd has enjoyed over the years at FS1. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @DustinTran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @DustinTran and Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @DustinTran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video. Comment down below. Check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel Sports Guy Talking.